In this video, we are going to transform our UI from this basic list to this polished interface. So let's get started. Inside the to-dos folder, let's create a new folder called widgets. Now inside this folder, let's create a new file called todo-item.dart. Inside this file, let's create a stateless widget called todo-item. Since this widget is only responsible for displaying data and doesn't manage any states of its own, a stateless widget is exactly what we need. Next, every to-do item represents a single to-do. So let's add a required to-do property to the constructor. But before we start building the UI, let's open up to-do-screen.dart and replace the existing list style with our to-do item widget, passing it the current to-do object. Now let's start building the UI. We will wrap everything inside a card. Cards immediately gives each to-do its own visual boundary. Inside the card, let's add some padding so the content has breathing room. Our layout has 3 sections arranged horizontally, a checkbox on the left, the to-do information in the center, and an edit button on the right. Since these widgets need to sit side by side, a row is the perfect choice here. So let's add a row widget. Next, let's add the checkbox widget. Notice that its value is directly connected to to-do.isCompleted. This ensures the checkbox always reflects the completion status of the current to-do. For now, I am intentionally leaving the onChange callback empty. We will implement the complete toggle functionality later in this series. Right now, our only goal is designing the UI. I have also changed the checkbox shape to circle border. It's a tiny change, but details like this help give the application a cleaner and more modern appearance. Next, we need to display the to-do information. Since the to-do information needs to be displayed vertically, a column is the natural choice here. So let's add a column widget. I'm also setting the cross-axis alignment to start, so the widgets will align neatly along the left edge. Next, let's add the text widget that displays the to-do title. Instead of hard-coding colors and text style, I'm using application text theme and color scheme. This keeps the UI consistent throughout the application and automatically adapt to themes like dark mode. I have also increased the font weight slightly so the title stands out as the primary piece of information. Below the title, let's add another text widget for description. Unlike the title, the description is optional. So before displaying it, we are checking whether it actually exists and is not empty. Here, we are using Flutter spread operator. If the description exists, Flutter inserts this widget directly into the column. Otherwise, they are simply skipped. So we don't end up with unnecessary empty space inside our card. But here we are getting a renderFlex overflow error. So why is this happening? It's because a row has a limited amount of horizontal space available, which is determined by its parent widget. By default, it asks each child how much width it needs and lays them out side by side. If the combined width of the children exceeds the available space, a renderFlex overflow error occurs. So how do we fix this? The solution is very simple. We will wrap the column widget with an expanded widget. Expanded tells column widget, don't size your cell based on your content. Instead, occupy only the remaining horizontal space that's available inside this row. Now, if I save the application again, the overflow error is gone. Next, let's also limit the description to 2 lines with an ellipsis. That way, even if someone enters a very long description, every to-do maintains a consistent height and the overall list remains clean. Next, we will display each to-do's category and priority directly inside the UI. This will allow users to quickly distinguish between different types of tasks without having to read every single to-do. To achieve that, each category and priority needs its own icon and color. Now, we could directly write this logic for choosing icons and color inside our to-do item widget. However, that would quickly result in cluttered widget with multiple switch statements and presentation logic. Instead, let's take a cleaner and more maintainable approach by creating extension methods for our enums. So let's create a new file called enumextensions.dart inside the core extensions folder. This file will contain extensions for both to-do category and to-do priority. Next, let's begin by creating an extension for to-do category. First, I will add an icon getter. Here, I'm using a switch statement to map each category to its corresponding material icon. This gives us a single place to define which icon represents each category. instead of repeating the same mapping throughout our UI. Next, I will add the color getter. Just like the icon getter, we are mapping each category to a predefined color using another switch statement. Keeping this mapping within the extension simplifies the future updates. If we ever want to change a category's color, we only have to modify it in one place, and every screen in the application automatically reflects that change. Next, let's do the same for to-do priority. First, I will add an icon getter. Again, we are using a switch statement to associate each priority level with an appropriate icon. Next, I will add the color getter. Here, we are assigning a color to each priority level, allowing users to quickly distinguish between low and urgent tasks at glance. Now that we have extension methods for our category and priority nums, displaying their icons and colors in the UI becomes much easier. The next step is to show this information inside each to-do item. But before adding the category, priority, due date, and reminder date to our layout, let's create a small reusable widget called MetaChip. Instead of writing the same icon and text combination multiple times, we will build it once and reuse it whenever we need it. This keeps our to-do item widget clean and easier to maintain. Below the to-do item widget, let's create a new stateless widget called MetaChip. Each MetaChip needs 3 pieces of information: an icon, a label, and a color. So let's add this as a required constructor parameters. Now let's build the UI. Since we only need to display an icon followed by some text, a row is the perfect choice here. Notice that I have also set the main axis size to min, so that the row occupies only as much as horizontal space as its content needs. Next, let's add the icon widget using the icon and the color passed through the constructor. Beside it, add the text widget using the label and the same color. Notice that the font size and icon size are smaller. It's because this metadata is secondary to the title. The title should remain the primary focus, while details like category and priority will provide the additional context without drawing too much attention. And with that, our MetaChip widget is ready. But before we start displaying the category, priority, due date, and reminder date inside our to-do item widget, let's make one small improvement to our to-do model. If we build the UI right now, we will end up writing checks like, does this to-do have a due date? Is there a reminder? Or has the due date already passed? Instead, we will move this logic into the to-do model itself. This ensures that the user interface remains focused on displaying data, while the model responds to inquiries about its own state. So let's open up to-do.dart and add few getters. The first getter is has reminder. It simply returns whether the to-do has a reminder date. Next, the getter is has due date. It follows the same idea and returns whether the to-do has a due date. And the final getter is overdue. A to-do is considered is overdue only if it is not completed, has a due date, and that due date is earlier than the current date and time. Keeping this logic inside the model gives us a single place to maintain it. Also, these are known as computed properties because they derive information from existing fields instead of storing additional data. Now that everything is ready, let's start using it. The goal is to make each to-do item more informative at a glance by displaying its category, priority, due date, and reminder date inside the list. We will place these MetaChips below the to-do description. But before that, let's add a small size box to create some spacing. Since we are displaying multiple chips, I will use a wrap widget instead of a row widget. A wrap automatically moves widgets to the next line whenever it runs out of horizontal space, making it perfect for displaying chips or metadata. Notice that I have also added some spacing and run spacing so that there is a consistent space both horizontally and vertically between each MetaChip. Next, let's display the category. Here, I'm using MetaChip widget we created earlier, passing it the categories icon, name, and color. Notice how the code is much cleaner because of the enum extensions we created earlier. We can easily access the categories icon, name, and color without writing any switch statements. Next, let's display the priority. The implementation is almost identical. We simply pass the priorities icon, name, and color to another MetaChip. Next, let's add the due date. Unlike category and priority, not every to-do item will have a due date. Therefore, before creating the MetaChip, we first check if the due date is available. If it is not available, Flutter simply skips rendering the widget. If the due date is available, we display it using MetaChip. You will also notice that the icon and color changes when the to-do item is overdue. Finally, let's add the reminder date. Just like due date, reminders are optional. So we will first check whether the to-do actually has a reminder. If it does, we will create another MetaChip using a notification icon and reminder date as its label. Again, because we have built a reusable widget, displaying another piece of metadata only requires passing three values: an icon, a label, and a color. Now, if I hit save, this already looks much better. Every to-do now communicates much more information without making the UI feel clutter. User can instantly identify the category, priority, due date, and reminder simply by scanning the MetaChips. And because we built everything using the reusable widgets and enum extensions, our implementation stays clean, easy to read, and easy to maintain. But there is one small problem. Right now, the due date and reminder date are displayed using toString. While this works, the output is not very human readable and doesn't provide the best user experience. So let's fix that by formatting our dates into a cleaner and more user-friendly format. Inside the core extensions folder, let's create a new file called datetimeextensions.dart. Just like our enum extensions, we will use extension methods to keep the formatting logic in one place instead of repeating it throughout the UI. This gives us much cleaner and reusable API. First, let's add the toFormatted_date method. Using the INTL package, it formats a date time into a readable date. Next, let's add the toFormatted_datetime method. This includes both date and time. We will use first method for due dates and the second method for reminder dates. Now let's go back to our to-do item widget and replace toString with toFormatted_date for the due date and toFormatted_datetime for the reminder date. And now if I hit save, immediately the difference is obvious. The dates are much cleaner, easier to scan, and far more user-friendly. Our to-do item now displays all the important information at a glance. The next step is giving users a way to update a to-do. So let's do that by adding an edit button. Notice that the onPress callback is empty because we will be implementing this functionality later in this series. Now if I hit save, every to-do gets a dedicated edit button, making the interface feel much more interactive. Before we wrap up the screen, there is one final improvement I would like to make. The to-do cards are currently placed very close to the edges of the screen. Adding a little spacing around the list will make the interface feel much more cleaner and more polished. Since our list is built using sliver list, the recommended approach is to wrap the sliver list with a sliver padding widget instead of using a regular padding widget. And now if I hit save, the list has consistent spacing around it, making the overall layout feel much more balanced. With that, our to-do list UI is officially complete. In the next video, we will start implementing one of the core features of every to-do application, creating a new to-do. Thank you for watching this video and I will see you in the next one. Happy coding!